Hello, welcome. I'm Dawn Gregg. I'm the director of the Information Systems Program at CU Denver, and I'm glad all of you could make it both here and online. So this is our first kind of virtual in-person event that we've tried to hold at the business school. So we'll see how this goes. So I'd like to thank all of our panelists for coming. And I'm looking forward to getting some good questions and answers and discussion around the IT job market and what the trends are in IT so that you guys know what you're going to get into when you get out and try to get a job. So let's see, what else was I going to talk about? That's about it. So I don't know. So without further ado, since I forgot what else I was going to say, I am going to hand it over to Tarun, the head of our Information Systems Student Association, so he can tell you a little bit about the association and how they help coordinate events like this.
Thank you, Professor Dawn. Hi, everyone. I'm Tarun, and I'm the president of Information Systems Association Club. Thank you so much, everyone, for turning out here, and also for people who are watching it via live. It's so good to see all of you here. The last year, it did not work out because of COVID, but thank you again this time, and also for the trust and for being here. So a couple of things I want to thank people, especially the ISA board members and the volunteers. They have taken entirely absolutely extreme effort to make this event happen. I know the lot of work they have been doing for the past 2 weeks, and I'd like to thank all of them for doing it. And also like to thank our advisor, Dawn and Jiban, for making sure that everything is on track and making this event a grand success. And also like to thank all the panelists for being here, for taking your time and being here. Looking forward for more collaborations with you guys. And moving ahead, I also want to talk about what else? All right, so Information Systems Association Club. You can always find us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. UC Denver ISA, that is the one keyword you have to look in. And I also want to say that you can always reach out to us, ucdenver.isa@gmail.com. That's the email address you have to reach out. And you can put down all your questions or any suggestions or any queries for the club. And I also recommend all the people who are here and also who are watching live to join the club, because ISA is a part of big thing, and we have been doing pretty good events, and you'll be more enthusiastic to learn a lot about our club. And that should be it. I'd like to pass it on to our vice president. She's going to talk about a couple of things about our club and our activities.
Hello, everyone. I'm Spandana Narhari. I'm the Vice President of Information Systems Association. So firstly, I would like to thank all the panelists and our moderator for being present at the ISA's 15th annual EDGE event. So firstly, ISA is a growing community where we work closely with the faculty, alumni, and the local businesses out there to provide a very good varied academic experience to the students and also a good career opportunities. Our association provides its members with career development, professional development, and career opportunities to the students by organizing events, which includes guest lectures and panel events, company tours, and also exclusive internship opportunities, etc. We are around 150 members in the club, and it is open to all the CU Denver students. And ISA is closely connected to CITI, which is Center for Information Technology Innovation. And also ISA is affiliated to AIS, which is Association for Information Systems, and also has won many awards, student chapter awards in 2010, 13 to 16, and 2018. Thank you.
All right, I have a couple of points to add up about ISA. So we have been doing pretty good events. I would also talk about a couple of very good events with business career connections where we collaborated and we help people understand what they have to put in their resume, and what companies are actually looking in your profile. And we did our first virtual event a month ago. That was with a Ithaca Denver chapter. It's a great chapter. I always want you to check that out. So it's all just like networking events or opportunities, but it's also about like having fun events, something like a coffee event or like a pizza event, where you people join in and have talks with people who might be doing similar education or maybe similar majors. You can speak with them and it's always going to be fun. And now I don't want to speak a lot. I'll pass it on to our moderator for the great event, Cynthia Wright, and a little bio about Cynthia.
Cynthia Wright is a retired US military officer with over 25 years of experience in national security, cyber strategy and policy, and in leading large organizations. Cynthia is presently a principal cyber strategy and policy lead for MITRE Corporation. Thank you, Cynthia. Please welcome our moderator for today, Cynthia Wright.
Can't actually see my own lap with this thing on, but I understand with separation, we're allowed to do this. So if you guys would like to come up to the stage, I'll give a quick introduction, just who I am and why I'm here. Good evening. My name is Cynthia Wright. As this fine young pair introduced me, I work for the MITRE Corporation. MITRE Corporation is a not-for-profit that exists. I think I'm getting these weird like echo things that exists to help particularly the federal government, but also public sector stakeholders in solving difficult technology and science problems. So in particular, I work for the State Department and the Department of Homeland Security, working with international partners and states, local and territorial representatives in particular. It's very interesting work. I was a quarter century in the military before that, you know, as you can see that quarter century, like I'm wearing it. But I have stayed in this career field because it is so diverse and so interesting, and there are so many amazing challenges that emerge year after year, job after job. In all these 30 plus years I've been doing this, I've never been bored. And I think you'll probably find that with our panel members today. So in just a second, I'm going to ask all of them to introduce themselves, but this is a thing that you learn when you're a military presenter. You start with a joke. So this is my best, it's not my only, but it's my best cybersecurity joke. Why should you never use beef stew as a password? Anyone? It's not stroganoff. So I hope that this will be a fun evening and that you will feel free to engage and ask questions. The panel members have said that they will, you know, pipe in as they have inputs. So we're just going to get started with introductions. Yeah, I got to step over here and I get the big echo thing going. All right, Kristen, do you want to start?
Sure, Christian Winward. I'm with First Bank. We're a locally owned bank. I think you guys might have seen us around a few sites downtown. But we're located in Colorado, California, and also Arizona. We have about 110 locations. Not that it means much, but in banking terms, we're about 28 billion in assets. And so I've been with the bank for about 30 years. I had started as a teller at one of our branch locations and spent a few years at one of the markets and just doing all the different branch activities. Then transferred to IT. Worked in IT for worked for IT for the rest of my career, basically. So about 25 plus years in IT, everything from tech support all the way up to enterprise architecture and managing every department, or either working in or managing every department within IT within First Bank. Just recently in 2019, I was promoted to CIO, previously CTO. And so that's kind of the pinnacle of my career at this point.
I'll go next. I'm Sujan Tundapati, CIO at Optiv. Optiv is the building right next door. So if you see the tall building with the big sign, and if you are one of the complaints who have some we had issues where people complained that Optive sign is too bright. And they couldn't sleep for whatever reason. But again, we are headquartered here in Denver. Optive is, the way we see it, we are kind of rebranding ourselves. We started out as a leading reseller of cybersecurity products. And then we moved into system services integration, where we provide cybersecurity advisory and solutions. And now we are kind of moving into more Optive-led solutions, where we partner with 500 plus partners and 7,000 clients, and we provide cybersecurity advisory solutions on top of cybersecurity products. And my role here is primarily leading IT, internal security, everything, infrastructure, cloud, operations. I've been doing this in the IT space for 20 plus years, been in Colorado for all my career. I worked at different companies here and locally here in Colorado, so do definitely love the city and the state. And we'll get into more cybersecurity fun stuff.
It would be bad if I couldn't figure out how to operate this. I'm Mike Felton. I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer for Crocs. I've been with Crocs for coming up on 3 years now, and we are located in Broomfield, have roughly 5,000 employees and 500 retail stores globally, with locations from Singapore, Netherlands, Boston, Colorado, obviously. And we're one of the fastest growing footwear companies out there today. We're driving with innovation and digital and connecting with our consumers through digital mediums first. And I'm responsible for everything in the technology space within the organization.
All right, I'm Josh Pinker. I am the VP of IT and CIO for Ovintiv. You may know us, you may not know us. We are an upstream oil and gas company. We used to be known as Encana. We've got major offices in Denver, Calgary, and Houston, and operations only in North America. So our tagline as an upstream oil and gas producer is that we make modern life possible, we power the world, and we firmly believe that we do that. So my history, I never started off kind of down an IT path. I was an economics major coming out of college, and kind of found my way into technology because it's cool, it's fun, and it's, as Cynthia was saying, it's always exciting, it's always changing. And so I started off not working in IT departments. I started working in the consulting industry, doing software development. I spent some time with Department of Homeland Security, doing work in the government space. And when I finally moved out to Colorado, that's when I kind of touched on aerospace and eventually found my way into oil and gas. So you never know where IT can take you. That's one things I want everyone here to walk away from, is that it's needed everywhere, absolutely everywhere. So I'll pass it on.
Hello, good evening. Good to see you all. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for having us here. My name is Marina Johnson. I am founder and CEO of Moss Programming. We're a technology company providing data-driven solution for the companies. For our clients, we make data most important strategic asset. My history, I used to be, before that company, I used to be CIO of HSS, that security company for 1,000 employees. And I touch every aspect of IT that you can imagine: telecommunications, infrastructure, architecture, anything, data management, everything and everything. It was fun. Now I have my own company, and during several last years, I was a finalist of CIO of the Year of Colorado Technology Association and Outstanding Women in Business of Denver Business Journal. So it was fun, a lot of work, and I'm here today to help you to define your future career.
Thank you, everybody. I have to resist the tendency to talk loud because I forget I'm wearing the mic. All right, so like cover your ears if I deafen you or something weird happens like that. Okay, I'm going to start with some of the questions that you all submitted that you directed to particular members on the panel so that we can get to know a little bit more about them. Mike, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to also like, Mike, less echoey, more echoey. How's this?
I also run the AV solutions at the company, and there is no right spot for it.
All right, so Mike, as someone in manufacturing, as opposed to some of these other career fields that people might more immediately think of as being related to software, can you talk a little bit about enterprise resourcing programs with regard to IT? How does IT fit in? How do you plan for it? How do you budget for it? How do you sell it to your company? How do you make that part of your company's business?
So I'm gonna rewind in my career a little bit. I started out my career in ERP consulting in '93. And back then, everything was really focused on financial systems, order management, procurement, and planning. But they were largely people-driven systems. There wasn't much happening within the organization besides being a transactional engine that you record data. And the extraction of that data was incredibly difficult back then with the tools we had. My original systems I wrote programs on and was working on were AS400s, and I'm sure you guys remember them, certainly in the banking field. And those things are dinosaurs, but they were very good transactional engines and performed well. What's happened over the past, I wouldn't say 30 years, I'm going to say like the past 5 to 6 years, technology is finally starting to get to the point where the promise of the user interface, the promise of the way that applications work, is catching up to the expectations. So what you'll find in your career when you start to go to work, you're going to see that the tools you have at home and to run your personal life are probably better than most of the tools you have access to when you're in an office. So for instance, I can tell you by looking at my American Express account, how much I spent in buying clothes and going out to eat and coffee. And those reports are readily available to me. But running the business, trying to find out, again, Crocs, how many charms we sold versus shoes versus sandals can be incredibly difficult. Now, with the advent of all the things that have happened and the tying together of what Microsoft's done and the innovations across the space, the way to extract the data out of those machines that are recording the transactions is so much better and far more advanced than what it ever was before. And on top of that, the user experience is being elevated to something that people enjoy working with. So that's the first part, is the big step of getting the data into the system and having something that's easier to use. And then the next component is then tying together innovation in adjacent technologies like RPA, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and plugging them in to do things that automate the tasks of where people are. So we were talking at the beginning of the session in the back about something that we're trying to drive innovation with through our ERP system, and that's creating designs and shoes using artificial intelligence, social listening engines, and things like that, where people don't have to touch them, and you harness the power of your data and turn that into transactions and insight in ways that you haven't been able to do in the past. So I think that what's going to happen over the next 5 years is data science, data evolution, and employing that data in different ways is going to make a huge difference in the way businesses transact. And it's not going to be something that's going to be the people who are driving innovation forward. It's going to be the cost of entry. And then as you progress in your career, and we up here all love technology, and the way we're successful is finding ways to employ technology to get better business results. And innovation isn't something that just happens at the top and goes down. Innovation happens with everybody. And being vocal in your organization with ERP and how you're employing it, because in essence, if it's SAP or Oracle or Microsoft Dynamics, they're doing largely the same thing. But how do you employ those other technologies around it and get a profoundly different result out of that engine? And that's what's really going to happen over the next couple of years, and will fuel the space in data science and fuel the need for those roles that will drive results for you and your careers and point you in directions that weren't available to us as we were growing.
Thank you very much. I want to pull on one quick thread from early in Mike's answer there to point out the note that what you're dealing with every day in your home, in your school, is perhaps more advanced that you're going to encounter in the office. And that this is something I think that is really important for people who are entering the workforce to remember. You come already equipped with certain skills that businesses need. And you may not think of those things as skills because you grew up with them. You use them every day. You have systems that you just pull data out of without thinking about, and that you integrate from across different sources. Those are skills that a lot of businesses need. Sometimes you need to think about how you can relate those to a business as seemingly unrelated to IT as Crocs to help sell yourselves in this environment. Then the second thing I want to pull out of that is data, is how we can use all that data. Marina, you are probably the most closely affiliated with that kind of data analytics, something we really traditionally think of as part of IT and those kind of related skill sets. Can you talk a little bit about what speaks to you the most, or what is most important to you, or is closest to your heart in your mission statement?
Well, interestingly enough, our mission statement more about people that business and strategic goals. So we, at most programming, we pledge to listen carefully, communicate openly, and respond quickly. We follow up and follow through. And I think even data is very important for us, and data is cornerstone of every business. Nevertheless, people, relationship, communications, probably the most important before the data, I would think. And we can apply it to the customers, to the client, to our employees. Actually, I'll put a different order, employees first. Employees first, because if employees happy, if you listen to them, if you let them speak up and know their story, they are successful. They bring our culture to success. So, and maybe I disappointed you. I know you tried to talk about data, but I think people should be ahead of everything, because people who doing the job, who bring you success, and who move forward your company. So that's, for us, it speaks the most.
In fact, that's one of the things that we have found in our workforce development research, is that one of the things that IT people need to remember to bring to the table is people skills, soft skills, the ability to communicate, the ability to recognize what kind of people problems they're trying to solve. Josh, I think you wanted to pile on to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of touch on sort of maybe the ERP piece along with data as well, because a lot of companies are transitioning. I'd probably say maybe 7 years ago, I went and met with a bunch of business leaders around my company. We were using kind of an ERP. In fact, we probably had 3 ERPs that we were kind of cobbling together to get all the work done. And the question I posed is, are we going to be an ERP company, or are we going to be a best of breed company? And I think where technology is at today, that you don't necessarily have to go all in on one platform. The technology allows you to compose your own platform. So things have changed quite a bit. We're in the middle of a Dynamics 365 implementation right now, replacing a very old legacy system that's been with the company for much longer than I have been. And along those lines, we're creating a data platform that's cloud-based, where we start, just piling in more and more and more of data, because we recognize exactly that data is an asset. Now, what does this mean to all of you? That's where I think some of your data skills are going to come in handy. I'm seeing more and more hiring of people with data and analytics skills outside of IT than's actually happening inside IT. So an IT department's role, I believe, is going to evolve to be more of an orchestrator of some of the activities around this. But I want to land people that are data scientists, that are data architects, that are data wranglers. I want to land them closer to the people that have the business acumen, and not have to try to develop that business acumen within my IT department. So I think it is a pretty dynamic space. I don't think that the final chapter has been written on this book yet, but what's being demanded of an IT department right now is quite a bit different than maybe what was there 10 years ago or so.
Great, yeah, I think that's true. And this is something I hope that you'll pull out of this evening from all our panelists. And I'm already getting the sense that we all feel that way. IT isn't something that you squirrel away down in the basement. It's not, it's not a bunch of guys in the back room with pizza and, energy drinks divorced from the business processes. It is the business. It is a key part of every business that you might want to get involved in. And you don't have to be all about the IT. You don't have to be all about the coding or any of those things to really understand how to bring those skills to a business and help make that business bigger. So just the fact that you're involved in this program, even if it's not your sole interest or your primary interest, if there's other things you can weave in with that, there's going to be a place. There's going to be a place for that. All right, so John, I want to turn to you if I could. So you're another one of the ones who's quite centrally in the IT cybersecurity kind of space. The cybersecurity has, at least in my experience, been fairly, paranoid in terms of like workspaces and protections and stuff. How have you found that the work from home transition, change, whatever we've experienced in this last year or so has affected cybersecurity and your business in particular?
Sure. I mean, I can speak to what we went through at Optiv to what our clients have gone through, because we work very closely with our clients. So if you kind of go back to last March, when everything kind of with the pandemic, companies had to switch to remote work if they don't have that set up yet overnight. And it was, I mean, from technology companies were able to switch it because they were kind of in that hybrid mode. Josh, we were talking about distributed. We are already kind of distributed. So it was not like we had to learn something new. We kind of knew how to support distributed workforce. Now, if you layer that cybersecurity on top of it, it opened up for the cyber crime as an opportunity for them to take advantage of this. Because when companies were switching into the support remote overnight, and it kind of put the companies, their systems into a kind of a stress test to see if they really worked. And while IT was focused on trying to make that work and make sure people can connect and still operate and run, the cyber criminals were able to take advantage of it with everything that was going on with the pandemic, with COVID relief and all those. I mean, the phishing has gone up 500% in the last 1 year. And still email and just sending that one link to an employee, hoping that they would click on it, was still their primary target. 45%, 50% of the cyber breaches started with that simple email. So their approach was very simple, but the impact was huge. And then as we were trying to figure out in the last 12 to 18 months how to secure companies, ransomware, which you will hear a lot in the cybersecurity space, has gone up significantly. I would say like probably, I think the one statistic is with the cyber crime, the cost of cyber crime for the entire world is $6 trillion with a T. And that is going to go to $10 to $15 trillion in the next 5 to 10 years. The reason for that is ransomware as a service. So you no longer need to have skills to become a cyber criminal or learn to be a hacker. You can actually go into the dark web and then you can buy ransomware as a service. You can package it up and you can go after something that you're looking at. So it's becoming such prevalent. So the skills, back to the skills development, it's so critical for us to find solutions for this and be able to actually stay a couple of steps ahead of the cybercrime, which is always going to be a challenge. So work from home opened up a lot of this opportunities for the cybercrime. At the same time, we are trying to find ways to protect our environment. Before, from an IT perspective, we were protecting a data center or maybe 10 branch offices or 12 branch offices. Now we have to protect 3,000 offices. The home offices are now part of our network. How do we protect? Because it can be a very simple link that someone can get into your Wi-Fi at home and from there get onto the corporate network. So it just keeps us busy, never a dull moment for us and for our customers. So this is something that is going to stay. I think, you all heard 60% of the employees would like to have preferences or flexibility to work from home. So it's not going to go away. Back to cybersecurity is something that I'm very passionate about. And my job is to protect our customers as well as protect Optiv. So I kind of play a dual role there. So that's something that I'm passionate about. So if you have any questions on this, more than happy to share perspectives and skills, what areas to focus on. But to Josh and Mike and Marina's point, data is very key for you to build your capabilities into cybersecurity. If you have logical problem solving, logical thinking, data, you're passionate about solving problems. And if you can be data driven, this is a very good area for you.
And we will, toward the end of this, talk a little bit about advice that these guys could give to you about your careers and where you're headed and what some of those skills are. Cybercrime is a perfect transition to you, Christian. Ransomware, you're kind of at the intersection of several trends. So unfortunately on the ransomware side, right? But also at the cryptocurrency, the blockchain, AI, data analytics, financial services are a really interesting point in the cybersecurity landscape. Can you talk a little bit about that and a little bit about how you see your portion of this ecosystem progressing in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think, from a cybersecurity standpoint, I absolutely agree that, it's just a constant attack. I mean, if we take a look at our perimeter and what we see on a daily basis, we're constantly being probed, we're constantly being attacked by not only, individuals, but nation states, as well as just organized crime, et cetera. It's the reality that we live in today. And so we just have to make sure that we're figuring out how do we protect against that. I mean, one of the biggest trends that we've seen in the last couple of years has been around credential stuffing. So when you hear about all the compromises of credentials, whether that's Gmail or others, if you look on your Apple phone or in your Google accounts, they'll tell you what credentials have actually been compromised. People will take those credentials and then try to go into our website and say, well, and reuse those credentials. So a credential that you use for Gmail, they might try to, because they know that people reuse username and password. So they'll try and put it into online banking. And then if they can get access to your online banking, then they can start to move money. So there's a variety of different attacks that we're constantly trying to protect against. And the reality is that it's just a matter of time before somebody finds a hole. You just have to have multiple layers of protection in order to make sure that you're protecting against an intruder if they ever were to find a foothold. So I absolutely agree. This is a constant space that is emerging, and it's a challenging space, and it's something that will always be a challenge for us. As long as there's technology, there will always be technology crime. So I think that that's just the reality that you have to prepare for. We do say that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so ransomware is a reality. We actually did a tabletop exercise this year with our senior leadership team, which includes all of our senior leaderships, including Chief Information Officer, Chief Risk Officer, CEO, Chief Operating Officer, and it was around ransomware. And what would happen if we had a ransomware attack, and how would we respond? Would we pay the ransom? How would we handle that event? And those types of exercises are critical around how would you respond in putting together a playbook, and how do you respond to those incidents? But flipping over to more of the cryptocurrency kind of trends and blockchain type of trends as well, because I think there was a piece of that in there as well. One of the things I would say on cryptocurrency is that it's an unregulated industry. If you take a look at the financial services industry, we're heavily regulated, whether it's the Federal Reserve, the FDIC, OCC, there's a variety of organizations that are regulating the financial industry. You talk about stocks and bonds trading, it's heavily regulated by the Security Exchange Committee, our Security Exchange Commission. So there is very limited regulation over cryptocurrency at this point, which is one of the benefits of it. There's the anonymity of it. And a lot of people are enamored by the idea that it's an anonymous transaction. But the reality is without that regulation and without that protection, consumers are kind of being put at risk. And so how do you manage that risk, and how do you make sure that you're not going to be taken advantage of, one, and that two, that you're buying the correct cryptocurrency. People that are dabbling in the market that don't really understand exactly how the market's structured and how it's being played out. And so the reality is there's a lot more to come in the cryptocurrency space. It's definitely emerging. You talk about the Fed is looking at a central bank digital currency as well, and they're wanting to enter into that market as well. So this is going to be an emerging space across all the financial industries, period. And it will affect all of us ultimately. The question is just how will we participate as a bank? And how will we leverage cryptocurrency or cryptocurrency assets as either collateral for a loan, or cryptocurrency assets if we want to hold those assets? But ultimately, think of it as anything else, like a commodity or a stock. There is value there. The value can go up and it can go down. Right now, it's on this skyrocket, so I think everybody's pretty excited about it. But the reality is you have to take that cryptocurrency and then you have to convert it to cash in order to spend it. And so that's the part that we want to make sure that we're involved in, is if you're going to need to convert that to cash and then pay something at a supermarket, for example, how do we enable that and how do we make that as easy as possible? And how do we protect the consumer throughout that entire process? And then obviously the technology behind crypto is blockchain, and blockchain is a fascinating technology that I think has a lot of potential beyond just cryptocurrency. And we'll see that used across the board as far as just records management and being able to handle, you know, this distributed ledger across multiple areas and multiple cities and counties, et cetera. And so I do think that you're going to see this kind of electronic, you know, digital kind of conversion as far as records managements are concerned. And that's probably what we're most excited about with the blockchain space.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm going to do a quick anecdote and then pull on one of those threads regarding blockchain. One of the, I'm always looking for interesting applications of IT and some of these emerging technologies. In some of our work in sub-Saharan Africa, blockchain is being used by developing nations to help cut back on corruption. In particular, there are countries where, for instance, people's land keeps getting sold out from under them by whoever is the, you know, paying off the official this week. And so they're losing property, they're losing wealth, they're losing whatever. And because there's been no reliable records, whoever ran that record ran the distribution of land and kind of indirectly wealth for a large part of that country. And blockchain contracts are something that they're now looking into as a way to make sure that the land registry is open and I mean, kind of ironically, transparent, and that it can't just be altered at a whim. So there's lots of applications for these technologies that kind of go beyond what we usually think of as cybersecurity. Okay, I'm going to kind of ask this sort of generally of you all. You asked, you talked a little bit about having an incident response tabletop exercise with regard to ransomware. This is something probably all of you, if not ransomware, something are going to face across very diverse industries. One of the questions we received here was that MIT has done studies showing that companies with executives who have technical knowledge perform better financially, whether or not they're actually in the CIO, CTO kind of realm. What do you guys think about that? And can you talk a little bit about what that might mean for these students? Anyone who wants to pile on?
So I would actually put it as, when I built out my organization today, we talked about data, I think you talked about the business knowledge. The people who understand the business and understand the data behind that really have the most power of what's going on, and embracing them and bringing into your business and opening up careers for them. I've seen many people go from accountants or in production and move into an IT career that's been very successful and lucrative for them in that space, moving up to VPs and beyond. And the reason behind that is they have a business mindset. And when you take the business view of things first and try to find ways to solve real business problems, as opposed to employing technology, it's employing technology for a reason, you get a different result. And technology is getting much easier as time goes on. It becomes much easier to employ. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think my kids who are 8 and 10 years old can program better than me now in certain areas. And watching what they can build and watching with people that I've quite frankly stolen out of the business and bring into my team. I've built my analytics department off of people that I just take out of finance and out of procurement. And the result of having people who understand that business goal and what the drivers are and connect to the company's mission. Okay, there's a big part of understanding what you do. And at Crocs, we sell shoes. I sell a lot of shoes. I use technology to do it. And making sure that you understand what the company mission is. You mentioned it well. I love it when I hear that. We keep people comfortable in their own shoes as well. If you know the company's mission, you fit into the ethos and you build out that culture, and it goes back to the people, all of what you've done. And that's why people who come out of the business and have that background, either an MBA or extensive years in business background, are highly successful in technology.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by this statement because, reading a lot of articles and literature, I thought it's opposite, that they say a lot of CIOs get an appointment who has MBA. So, and I'm really surprised. I think it is very important that people understand IT. I do. But, you know, I have master's degree in computer science and I'm in IT all my life. And now when I run in my own business, it's really, I wish I will have MBA as well to understand, you know, business and finance better, because I never touch finance being completely in IT, isolated kind of, and thinking about technology. So I'm kind of surprised by this statement, sorry. Just to make a little bit spicy this conversation. I would love to hear from other people in this panel.
Yeah, I have a bit of a different perspective on it. Within First Bank, it's very much a promote from within culture. So similar to what, what you're talking about at Crocs, it's like you take people from the business, you teach them IT, and you teach them the skills and train them on hand. And so it's absolutely true that you would need that business knowledge. I think where I see the benefit is previously I reported directly to our CEO, who had managed IT, and basically IT had reported directly to him for a good 15 to 20 years. Very versed in IT, understands it backwards and forwards. And so conversations with him are an easy conversation. It is a conversation around what makes sense and how do we respond quickly and how do we act quickly. More recently, in an effort to succession plan for his replacement, he's now shifted me to the chief operating officer. Now I'm reporting to the chief operating, very different conversation, not as technical, not as knowledgeable about IT. And it's a much more difficult conversation. It's a harder conversation. Doesn't mean that it's a bad conversation, but we're kind of cutting our teeth, if you will, on the information technology pieces of it. And so therefore it slows us down. And so I think that there is very much an aspect of where leaders should have a technical aptitude and an ability to translate into an IT space, because ultimately it'll make them more efficient. It'll allow them the insight to say, how can I respond quickly? How can I forecast where I need to be in order to respond to market trends, in order to respond to what's happening in the industry? And that is invaluable from our CEO. He's tasked, at various different levels. In fact, I think he was just on the House Financial Committee, or he was reporting on some of the issues around digital banking. And so that aspect of his technical knowledge has made him invaluable in the banking industry. And I think that that's what translates. So I do think that there's a variety of different perspectives that we kind of need to throw at it.
I just want to throw one more piece out there as well. If you think about in business, our consumers are all they interface with us in technology first. And that's the first way we connect to who we're actually selling our goods and services to. So technology is not a facilitator of the business. Technology is the business. So we at Crocs have grown to 50% digital and going to go beyond that. And we're going to be one of the largest apparel footwear providers in the world that is digitally led. We engage with our consumers on digital. If you look at all these brands that are out there, they run collaborations. Collaborations all go with a digital first approach. So that is how you connect with your consumer. And you can't forget that, because how you connect, the mediums you're connecting with, the data you're collecting, is all about the consumer. And I know you know that in the banking industry, because your world scares the crap out of me when it comes to cybersecurity.
And I'll just kind of add one more angle on this. Being in a business that's a commodity-based business, so anyone in business school, you kind of recognize there's different business models, but the products that I produce are commodities, where a molecule of oil or gas that comes out of the ground doesn't have a brand to it. So there is really no sort of consumer engagement aspect there. So in that case, we're a company that's built with a lot of engineers, people that are, petroleum engineers, mechanical engineers, you name it. And, they value that engineering problem-solving mindset. Now, where I think technology or understanding of information technology comes into play for engineers is if they have a problem-solving mindset, they need to understand some of the capabilities. And that's where some real value of a good IT leadership team, IT professionals come into play, is they're really good at translating between what technology capabilities are and what kind of outcomes can be achieved for your business. And not all business leaders have that background. The ones that do, I would agree. I think that they probably have a little bit of a leg up. But I think it's not required for a CEO to have a strong technology background. If they surround themselves with the right people, they'll be they'll be just fine and they ask the right questions and they're willing to listen.
Hopefully you guys are going to be the right people. So John, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to add a little bit. I think we all have different perspectives. IT traditionally has been an order taker, right? Business, they figure out, they have business problems, a pain point that they want to solve. In some cases, they already choose a solution. And they come to IT and say, okay, can you implement this? Can you deploy this for us? But being in IT, again, depends on the culture of the organization, but there is an opportunity for IT to have a seat at the table where they can co-create solutions. That's something that we are highly encouraging my team to be a lot more, speak the business language, be a little bit business savvy. We talk a little bit about soft skills. They're truly not soft skills, the social skills. IT, I mean, we want to be just heads down, bang at the keyboard, and then that's all we want to worry about coming in and leaving office. But that empathy, the respect, if you can go into the meeting on, okay, let me try to listen more and try to find what's the underlying root cause and emphasize more on that and not try to solve the problem, because you can solve the problem. There are many different ways technology can solve any kind of a pain point. It's not that. I mean, it's about getting to know what is really the root cause and trying to find the right solution, and then apply your tools, your technology to it, and then be able to build that trust with the business. That really helps for someone who's trying to grow your career. This is something that I highly encourage for anyone in my organization to grow, build that mentality, build that mindset, and then be able to co-create solutions.
I think you kind of anticipated my next question, because you all had such interesting and different answers to that one. I want to kind of flip it on its head and ask for each of your businesses, how would you recommend that, or think, or help maybe these guys think about presenting themselves in light of your business model? For instance, how does someone who's come up in the technology, coming out of school with a technology degree or technology focus, how can they talk to you, or maybe not you, maybe that person in your organization who's not so technical, who doesn't speak IT, how can they talk to them about your business in a way that is that can help make them stand out from their peers?
Storytelling. That's a skill that if you can find articles or YouTube videos, it doesn't matter, just try to figure out how to tell a story. Basic skills on how to tell a story. Second is spend quite a bit of your time when you start with a new company in their business, day in the life. For typical ERP engagements, IT should be spending their time sitting in a manufacturing plant or in a supply chain to understand the business, understand their language, how they speak. Because, this is something that I used at my all hands last week. Average human attention span is now 8 seconds. And guess who's better than humans now? A goldfish. It's 9 seconds. We beat it by a second. So that's the attention span that you have with your business partner when you go in. So when we are changing the culture of how we engage with our business, we are trying to make the meetings a lot more effective, keep it to 25 minutes. With the Zoom setup that we have, it's back to back. When you get into the workforce, you will be amazed that, okay, you start your day at 7 a.m. and then you'll be working till 6 p.m. with no interruptions, back-to-back meetings, and then you'll be fully exhausted and stressed after that. So, there's a lot of cultural aspect, people aspect that you want to bring in. And then, like I said earlier, empathy and have the respect and be able to kind of see it from their perspective. Sometimes IT tends to be very, very logical, and then we have governance and we have things that we need to protect. So we have a lot of things that are going on when the business is coming to us with a business problem. But at the end of the day, it's about, are you adding value to the business?
And I would leapfrog off of what Sir John said, is that it is about storytelling, but it's also, if you jump back to what he was talking about, they come to you with solutions. And the question that you have to ask is, well, what problem are you trying to solve? And we reinforce that pretty heavily with our business units, where they come in and say, we want to go evaluate this product. We immediately say, well, what problem are you trying to solve? Come to us with the problem and talk to them about the problem, empathize with the problem, understand it. Ultimately, you're problem solvers, regardless of what position you're in, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's, applications development, test automation, whatever it might end up being, you're a problem solver. And if you come in with those problem solver skills and with the ability of storytelling to be able to communicate to the business, that's invaluable. And being able to speak their language, they don't want to know IT language. They don't want to buy the IT dictionary. They want to know that you know the business language, the banking language, et cetera. And so if you can speak their language and translate it and explain it to them in a simplistic term, that's going to be invaluable and helpful for them. And then you're going to be their best friend. So, which is not really your goal, but ultimately it's going to help you out a lot.
Yeah, I would just say you don't go into those conversations leading with IP addresses and numbers of servers and databases and that kind of thing, because that just goes right over everybody's head. You may know a lot about it, or you may have some ideas on how you'd architect it, and that's really fun to do. But it always comes back to what are those business outcomes. So, and sometimes the storytelling, I think it's really great from an IT perspective. You can come in and you can see patterns of things that happen in other industries that you might not be in. And so that's a unique perspective, is network with your other peers across outside your industry. And you might find that, you can sit down with a leader in your finance group of your company and say, wouldn't it be nice to not have a team that does sort of quarterly fraud detection work? And, have you ever noticed, when there's maybe some fraud on your credit card, you get like this alert that just kind of shows up on your phone? As we're talking about how the things that you guys experience in your personal lives are not things that we necessarily all have working well within our companies. But what if fraud detection was something that we could start doing real time? And you didn't need a team that was sort of looking for the needle in the haystack. And you were getting, real-time alerts on those sorts of things within a company if somebody's invoicing the company for something that they shouldn't be, or there's some relationship between some companies, there's some new risk that's there because something happened in the market to a company that we do business with, and they might not be able to pay the bills. If we invoice them for something, they might not be able to pay us back. So it's about, that's one thing I think IT is very uniquely positioned to do, is to bring ideas from outside of the industry you might be working in into that industry and change it.
I have just a little thing to add. When I interview a person, especially freshly graduated, this person doesn't have a lot of experience. They just graduated, they have knowledge that they learn. But when you talk with this person, I see all the time how this person will be interactive with our team, what his social skills, how willing this person to learn something new. And I would recommend be yourself and tell what you build your own network, coaching hockey team or whatever it is. So build yourself, sell yourself and tell what you're passionate about. And I was in a presentation of basketball coach Nuggets, I forgot his name, but interesting. He was talking about, he said, I have this star and I had this star. And this star, whatever name of this player is, he just playing with the ball by himself. He doesn't pass to his team players. And guess what? It was a difficult decision. I get rid of these stars. I need team players. I need people who work together, who listen each other. Again, my topic, listen each other. So who try to work together. This is very important. Everything else, technical knowledge, you can acquire, you can learn. But show that you're passionate about something, that you can communicate with people and you're interested to learn. That I think very important for us.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna take that, answer kind of one of these questions on the side, and then pivot. It's gonna be miraculous. All right, one of the questions was someone who was interested in possibly switching over from a business major to something else, and having taken one of these classes is thinking that IT and information security might be something to pique their interest. I'm hoping that what you've already heard a little bit here, they're like, well, why would this be good? I'm hoping that you've already heard a little bit about all the different ways that bringing a business mindset to IT can really be useful and vice versa. So I would just say, to Marina's point, get out there. If that's what you do, if you've got business with some IT or IT with some business, there are a million combos out there for that. It's about telling the right story that fits with the business model of the company you're talking to and selling those skills that you already have. But Marina, you mentioned some people maybe being a little bit nervous about coming into this career field. We have another question. This is the pivot. Are you ready? What kind of career paths or maybe approaches to entering the workforce can you take if you're really nervous about this? If you're really worried about making mistakes, you really want to make sure every single thing you do is right. Is there a part of the IT industry that might be a better fit for someone who really, they want to get their foot in, they want to do something steady and methodical and detail-oriented, accuracy-oriented? Is there a place for that, and where might they go from there? You, Sujan?
I can go. Yeah. There is a group within my organization, I call them Business Transformation Office. So these are not technologists, these are not infrastructure engineers, security engineers. These are, maybe if you're familiar with project management, business analysts, process analysts. So that's an organization that's a kind of a bridge between IT and the business. And I leverage that organization. That reports into me, to my organization, but they're not technical. They don't go into the conversation with the business on, okay, talking IP addresses. But if you are in that business and IT trying to figure out, that's a good people skilled, more focus on attitude than aptitude here. So you don't need to have tons of technical skills. You get to understand both business and IT, and kind of be the translator in the middle. So process analyst, business analyst, even project management, if you are something that you're interested to manage stuff, that could be a good starting point.
Attitude versus aptitude, really quickly. Another thing that my company has been researching in workforce development for cyber is how do we get, there's a million jobs out there, how do we get you all into them? And one of the things we found is that job descriptions are written very high level, 4-year degree in something comp sci related, multiple certificates, 5 to 6 years of business experience. These guys aren't going to have that when they walk out. And some of them will apply anyway, and some of them will get those jobs anyway. But there have been some studies that show that many women in particular will not apply for those jobs if they feel they don't have every single one of those skills. So can you talk a little bit about the skills that are like fundamentally required for your business, and how, if you don't quite meet the job description, you can still bring that attitude to the job interview and convince people that you have the aptitude. You can grow the skills, that you don't necessarily have to start right there at the top, and that they are still a good fit. Can you guys talk about anything in your experience or thoughts about that? Yeah, please.
Yeah, absolutely. If I had to have the qualifications for everything that I ever did in my career, I would never be anywhere near where I'm at. I went to school for, I started a pre-med. I decided interesting, but I didn't like it. I went into English literature and then communications. And when I went out of school, I took a documentation position with an IT firm. And when you talk about attitude and team player, there was an implementation going on for ERP at Fila, big apparel footwear company in Baltimore, and the project manager quit. And I said, I'll do it. And just employing everything that I knew and being a good team member, and that's what started my career. Had nothing to do with backgrounds or programming, or I learned how to program. I learned how to be a data architect. Not in a school sense. I'm not saying that it's the wrong thing to do, but the point I'm getting at is within IT, the great thing about it is when you make a mistake, you can always fix it. There are very few things that are so detrimental, and there are so many controls out there today that being afraid to step in, or being afraid, especially for an entry position, being afraid to ask to get a shot at it, you're doing yourself a disservice. You guys have been incredibly successful to get to this point, and you're going to graduate, and that's a huge success in and of its own. People would be lucky to have you. So you should be interviewing for the role that you think, because what you start with and where you're going to go in your career, it's not going to be you studied programming and 30 years later, you're still programming. If it is, you did something terribly wrong in your career. You're going to be changing all around, and you're going to do things in the business. Even for myself, about, I think it was September of last year, our VP of distribution left, and I took on global distribution for the organization. So I ran that for almost a year. Had no background in distribution, but I'm a leader in the organization. The CEO tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Mike, can you do this?" Sure, why not? So it's really about the way you go in, the way you engage others, and there's a side of things of being incredibly talented but toxic to an organization as well. And when you talk about attitude versus aptitude, that's not even a hard decision for me. Those people are just gone. You can tell them when they walk in the room. But when you talk to people who are engaging and who just want to be part of the team, you can pick them out anywhere. 5 minutes, you know, especially in entry-level jobs, if they're going to have a fit. So that's kind of my thought.
Yeah, one of the things that my team, we've been talking about a lot for my IT department is actually needing to have more people that are versatilists, that can adapt to different situations and do different things. And I think that's pretty much exactly what you're talking about. And I'm not saying that you necessarily, I think you're going to see more and more IT departments wanting to hire that. I think the areas we've been pulling from when we're hiring people that are versatilists are people that have been consultants in the past, quite frankly, because I think consultants, I came out of the consulting side of things, and a lot of times you're asked to go in and do something that you haven't really done before, and you get the whatever for idiots book and or whatever for dummies book, and you're going off and figuring it out as you go, and you have experience in some way, shape, or form, but you've got to figure out that company and what that company needs, and it's not really technically in a handbook anywhere. It's a unique thing that you've got to discover and help guide that company through. So the idea of becoming more of a versatilist versus a deep technical specialist in an area, I think is pretty appealing. I've recently had job openings on my team in the cybersecurity space, and I have people that have been for years working in networking and managing the network and the perimeter and all that, saying, I think I want to start, I want to shift my career over to the cybersecurity space, and that they're expressing their interest to learn something new. I'm willing to give them the opportunity to do that. And so I guess that's the other thing I would throw out there is never stop learning. Just because you're not in school anymore, when you graduate, doesn't mean that you're going to stop learning. It's actually the start of getting that real world experience where you're going to learn. You're going to learn a lot of really good things. Sometimes they're going to be hard lessons that you're going to learn. Those are usually, I think, the most meaningful. You got to learn from your mistakes as you go. And so, anyways.
So I read the statistics about women, and I am a woman, just for reference. So, I read the statistic that women are afraid to apply for the jobs. I mean, you know what, for me, I was really surprised. I never experienced that. I think we all need to believe in ourselves. We didn't born and knew how to walk. When we born, we didn't know how to eat, right? We didn't know how to speak. We learn. So we can learn anything. And when I came and my first job, at this point, we learn how to put computer together, sound card, hard drive, all this stuff. So I never did it before. And I said, I can try it. And I did it. And I went under the desk and I connect computer and I check connection, then telecommunication. Never knew anything about telecommunication. And my boss just told me, we need to fix this phone board. And I was punching all these phones together. He came, said, no, it's some wires kind of crossed. Redo it. And I redid 100 numbers. I redid it again. So just believe in yourself, try something new. Otherwise, you miss an opportunity. You would never know what you don't know. So don't be afraid, apply. If they didn't hire you, fine. You have another 1,000 opportunity. Try it and do it and learn something new. That's the only way to survive.
I think, is it Franklin Roosevelt, someone has a very long quote, the gist of which is when someone asks you if you can do a thing, say, yes, I can, and then figure out how to get it done. And you absolutely put yourselves out there. And if you don't get hired by a company, that's one more experience with an interview you have under your belt.
Just adding to that one thing you're talking about, if you look at the jobs you'll be applying for, you'll see something that'll say SAP analyst, 3 to 5 years experience with Microsoft Dynamics experience and some Oracle integration cloud and data science, 3 years background. The person doesn't exist. It's a conversation that's happening with HR. They put together the resume. Half the time we don't even read what's getting posted out there with a couple of exceptions of that general blurb at the top. And then it gets to the interview who applied. And that's really how it starts, because there's a lot of things that are out there. There's a lot of jobs. If you fit one of them, you can learn the others, especially at the entry level.
One thing I would add, and I agree with everything that everybody has said, because it's absolutely about putting yourself out there, but you also have to find a company that's going to give you the opportunities, and a company that's going to believe in what you can do and allow you for the opportunity to move around. Where you start is not where you're going to end. Absolutely. It's where you start is where you get your foot in the door, and that's where you learn where you want to go. And it may be within that same organization or it may be another organization, but find an organization that allows you those opportunities. Within First Bank, we have this saying within technology specifically, that for every position that we open up, we end up hiring 3 people. The person that we hire for that position, the backfill for the person that since they moved, and then the final person that we needed to basically actually go up from a headcount perspective. And it's the reality is that we want to see people moving in their careers. We want to have that diversity of skill set. You want to build that out because that's what makes your most powerful employees, your most powerful contributors. And absolutely, from a female perspective, you should not be waiting to check all the boxes. That is ridiculous. And I've had to have several conversations with people that have given me lists of reasons why they shouldn't apply. And I gave them just the simple answer, I need you to apply.
That's an excellent point. Thank you. I also think the point about hiring 3 jobs for every job that's listed is important. I've had experiences in companies where they didn't know they necessarily had 3 jobs to hire, but having interviewed someone, they're like, this person is totally not the fit for that position. But they said some things I didn't think about and had some perspectives I hadn't considered. And we got to find a place to put this person. And they would find places to do that. So the job interview is just your excuse to show up at their door. So show up at the door, that's the first part. Okay, I think we've got a couple more minutes before we're going to open it up for on the fly questions. I want to ask you guys a little bit just about kind of your experiences with what kind of advice you'd give to these guys, maybe a little bit about what you see in the future for tech and why it's going to be cool and what it's going to be exciting. If you have any advice for what things that they might think about or pursue or posture themselves, anything like that. It's kind of the open-ended advice column period. All right, Christian, let's start with you. Surprise.
Thanks. I would say you're always going to be challenged. You'll never have a dull day, I would say, within IT. You may get into ruts, but that's up to you to figure out where you want to be moving so that you're not in that rut anymore. There's always more opportunity. Where I see IT heading is ultimately, eventually everybody's going to become coders. I know that may scare some people, especially people that are in infrastructure who like the hardware and everything else. The reality is all of the infrastructure is moving to the cloud, and then it's all automation within the cloud. And so you're coding automation, you're coding networking, you're coding security, you're coding all of these different pieces. In testing, we used to have a ton of manual testers. Those are now test automation developers. They're automating those tests. They're trying to figure out how do we make these the most efficient. We have our slew of developers. So like if we talk about IT being about 400 people within First Bank, over 60 to 70% of that is just development alone. Then we have a project management office on top of that. And then we have infrastructure and operations. So it's all about development, even in the infrastructure space, and it'll all be heading toward that. So if you think you're going to avoid code, You're probably not going to, but think about how powerful that code can be and what you can accomplish with it and how you can take human error, human judgment out of that and put it into code so that it's there constantly securing and managing the infrastructure. I think that that's an exciting opportunity. But that's my one piece of advice. I think that's where we're all headed at this point. So embrace it.
Coding isn't necessarily ones and zeros in that scenario, right? A lot of that is more human language coding. It's kind of how you frame the problem, how you think through the problem. It isn't necessarily going to be, you know, your
It's not
Fortran.
Object-oriented coding anymore.
Absolutely.
It's about scripting. It's about logic. It's around problem solving again. So I think it's just, it's not anything you should be afraid of. It's something you should fully embrace.
Right. Mr. John?
Yeah, I can speak to cybersecurity. There are 3 million job postings out there that are unfilled. Cybersecurity has the lowest unemployment rate because it's kind of secure job once you get into that space, and then you can kind of go horizontal, vertical, depending on how what you're passionate about. There are like 500,000 jobs just in US open in the cybersecurity space. So that itself, that stat shows that it's something that if you are passionate about problem solving and we want to work on not a dull moment kind of a day, it's a good space to be in. At the same time, I just don't want to glorify that. There could be, you need to be prepared for, because people come to you when there's a problem. So it's like you're going to the doctor. So it's kind of, I don't know to say it's a similar profession, but it could be stressful. So if you're not comfortable with that, and then if you're not comfortable with that kind of stress situations, maybe that's something that you can evaluate, you can try. Again, you're not going to start at a senior position, you start with an analyst role, and then you kind of learn the trade. So that's something that if you're interested, absolutely go for it. Back to the preaching mode, when you go to the interviews, bring your A game. Just smile, go in there, don't think too much. Don't think, okay, did I check all the boxes? How am I doing? Just be yourself and make sure that you're having fun. Learn from it. And sometimes, if you don't get a job, see if you can get some feedback from the hiring manager. Tell me what happened, or if they're open enough to share that feedback. Some hiring managers are, they can provide you did good in ABC, maybe a couple of areas that we were looking that you didn't match, or maybe they can provide you some additional coaching. And final thing that I would say is, with pandemic, a lot of conferences are now open virtual and free. So if you find something that you're interested in, try to sign up with your school account. They generally have school discounts are mostly free. So sign up for different conferences, learn, attend those in your free time, or look at the recordings. You get to speak the business language. You get to understand different business models.
I think I lost track of the question.
Your general advice column moment. Talk about why they should get into this field, what they can do to be better at it, what they can do to be successful at getting into the field. And
So I love what you said about embrace the coding, by the way, because that's not just going to end in IT either. If you're a financial analyst, you're going to be coding. That's just, those are facts. So I think that technology, there's a conversation of the business and IT, and I think that's just a misnomer. And you got to start talking about technology, accounts receivable, and don't generalize anybody, because you don't want to be generalized, because it is becoming this continuum of a business culture, and everybody plays a role. From my perspective, if you're looking to get a job and you're coming out, if you're in your junior year, I would highly recommend looking for internships. So we run some intern programs every year. They're not the highest paying jobs, but one of the interns we had from 2 years ago is now my senior data architect, and he's come along in literally 2 years to holding a pretty high position within our group. And then 2 others, they went, and now they're going to come back next year in cybersecurity. So internships are a great way to get, one, your foot in the door so hiring managers know you. And then 2, you get to see if it's a company you like. From my perspective, I forget who said it specifically, but finding a company, or for me, finding a company and brands that I was passionate about or could do great things with, that I've been a customer of, those are companies that I thought that resonated with me and I could do better things. So for instance, early in my career, I spent a lot of time learning and doing implementations, and I find that the ones like back in the 90s, I did Giorgio Armani and Calvin Klein menswear, did a great job at those. I loved the product and it was free. They were giving it to you working late nights, and it's amazing how that turned around. And then later on in life, I went into this place outside of Myrtle Beach, California, or Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and it was just like blank T-shirts. It felt like a soulless job, and I'd have to say it was my worst position ever, and I almost got fired after doing the job because it just didn't engage me. So finding a company that resonates with you, with finding a mission statement or finding a group that you'd like to be a part of is incredibly important to your career and your satisfaction. Because if you're going someplace on a day-to-day basis and you don't like the environment, you don't like the people, or you don't like the brand, or you don't like the company, you're not going to enjoy it. There's a lot of things that can be said, and we talked about it, is the skills can be learned, okay? If I was going to learn a skill, or I'm going to advise someone coming out right now, data science, data integration, data architecture, it's the backbone for everything that we're running. I'd no disrespect to cybersecurity there. I highly recommend it. But that would be my area to go into.
So I would echo that cybersecurity and data science analytics, I think, are the hottest spaces right now. But what I would also say is, everything's always changing. So, when you jump into IT, it's so interconnected. I'll go back to that. It's so interconnected to everything. What I would encourage you guys to do is keep your eyes open. Look for opportunity. You never know where it's going to take you, from one industry to the next, or one area of IT to another. It's probably one of the most flexible spaces you can be in. And if you go in with an open mindset, if you think about, let's say, from your business school marketing class, solving for pain, if you're thinking with that kind of a mindset, you're going to be successful. You're going to see all kinds of things that might interest you, or some things you might get into, and then you move on into something else. I mean, building custom applications that are used for measuring, activity at security checkpoints and airports, or that was kind of interesting. Again, you just never know where all these different things are going to take you, and just kind of go with it, because you guys are young, you have long careers ahead of you, and I would say just try to be as flexible as possible. Don't get stuck in any one thing, unless it's something you absolutely love and you want to stay there for the rest of your career.
So a lot of things said, and I hope you listen everything and it's useful for you. Two things I would like to add. I don't think any IT areas that we don't have shortage of, and the people looking for any IT people, any IT knowledge that they can find. So what I would recommend, think about yourself. Are you introvert or extrovert? It will help a lot to define what you would like to go. Because I have a lot of introverts, the developers, and I saw a lot of people, IT people, sitting in a dark room. I know we talk about this and don't want to be touched, and they're comfortable with this, and nothing wrong with that. And maybe these people would like to code and to do network troubleshooting, stuff like that not require too much interaction, and they become star. And I have stars like that like to be left alone, sit by itself, but they're brilliant people. If you're extrovert, maybe think about project management, business analyst, and look on a different perspective, look on the strategy of the company. And if you're a business analyst, you can really make this company operate differently and review business processes and optimize them. It's really exciting. It depends what excited you. And I would recommend just to try everything, but still take in consideration who you are. Start from yourself before everything else. And another thing I want to finish that, and I will tell you a little story because somebody was talking about stories important. Anyway, I would recommend you to join some kind of professional organization. And I give you example. I'm generally introvert. I know it doesn't look like that, but I am. And I was working as CIO 60, 80 hours a week in my office, and I was reported to President CEO. Once he came into my office at night and he said, Marina, I think you need to join professional organization. And I just said, absolutely not. I don't have time for that. I'm working here. When am I supposed to go? You want me to go socialize, talk with people, I would be more productive to sit here and do what I need to do. I mean, it's a big organization we're running here. So he is a very wise man. He decided not to argue with me. He knew that it's not going anywhere. He went to his office and writing me email. Marina, I just signed you up for Society for Information Management. I pay with company credit card, and you better move your butt and go tomorrow at 5 p.m. And in this case, I'm sitting in my office by myself. You know, you don't type rejection email, right? It's kind of done deal. So I'm just like, oh, I need to go. And I went next day, and I'm still at this organization, and it was the best thing that ever anybody did for me, because it's opened so many doors. I learned so many things about from people of my colleagues and how they do things and what they're thinking. So it's a lot of organization. If you will ask me, I can recommend you some of them that's very inexpensive, like SIM Next, Society for Information Management Next, for people who started IT careers. They meet every month, and you will learn a lot. You will meet people who work in an IT field, and I guarantee you people love to help, and somebody will help you. So just be yourself, think about your traits, who you are, and try to listen as other people, ask mentors, and ask them to help you, and people will be happy to help you.
Thank you very much. I think those were all good answers. I hope you guys got some useful tips out of that. We have just a few minutes. Do you all have any questions that you want to ask people? Yeah. I think we have a mic. Hold on for 1 second and just wait for the mic to come to you, please. Young man in the orange.
I think that's on.
It's on.
Okay. Hi, my name is Vicente Veach. I'm actually an entrepreneurship major. So that means I've dedicated myself to a career with no job security. But my question is actually for Marina. So as an entrepreneurship major, what do you see the value of, or how would you phrase the value of starting a data-driven company from the get-go? As an entrepreneur, a lot of time we spend focus on marketing plans, operation plans, sales plans, but the IT side is not really focused on in the business plan. So what advice could you give to starting data-driven startups?
That's really difficult question. You know, you need to understand that everybody needs to do something with the data. A lot of organizations right now have tons of data that they don't know what to do with that. They don't have any idea, you know, and they kind of looking for some help for that. And if you have some idea what you can propose to do with data, you can come to this organization and start from just probing and give people advice. And I think you need to do with data, visualize your data. Or I'm an expert in Power BI. I mean, a lot of people looking for Power BI and looking for help with that. And if you're passionate about this and you can give your point straight and clear to people, how you can help their organization to build more successful, more effective operated organization using their data, you will be very successful. A lot of people looking at this, but start from network first. So you listen what people actually looking for.
This evening's discussion is part of bringing what you're bringing as an entrepreneur to your customers, is knowing what problem they're trying to solve, right? We don't do data for data's sake. We do data to solve a particular problem. Solving for pain was, you know, the kind of the design thinking sort of starting point for that. So I think maybe not looking so much at what am I going to do with my data startup as what kind of data related problems out there need solving, and how can I help do that? And I think you were next. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Ana Cláudia. As you can see, I'm not American, I'm from Brazil. You talked a lot about the underqualified that it could apply, Mike. But I know that almost everyone here in this room is starting their careers right now. But what can you talk about the overqualified combined with age? And I don't want to the political correctness answer. I want to hear the truth.
So when you say, you mean like people being afraid to interview for a position that might be lower than their qualifications, or?
No, it's not from my side that I'm applying. I want to know the view from the companies that are hiring people and maybe people that are a little overqualified that are applying.
Well, I would put it more this way. I think that if you write one resume, that's a mistake. You should be writing your resume for the jobs that you're applying for and tailor it to be what it is. You don't embellish, you don't lie what's on your resume, but putting out the relevant facts as to why you're applying and what interests you about the job and putting that cover letter with it goes a long way. No, if I received a resume that's 4 pages long, I'm not going to look at it, because that person they're not looking at what they're applying for. Because in technology, quite honestly, skills before 2010 aren't relevant anymore. So when you write your resume, it's about what are the relevant skills that you're bringing to the job and write that specifically for that job. And that way you can get in the door for the interview. And obviously people are going to say, what have you learned in your career? And for me, when I interview people with a lot of experience for jobs that they maybe seem overqualified for, it's more what interests you about this position. Just last week, I was interviewing somebody for business analyst roles and business transformation roles. Those are great entry points, project managers. But the questions weren't necessarily about everything that you've done in your career. The questions were about, here's the job that you're applying for, what interests you about it, what skills are you going to bring with your experience, and how's that going to make you successful in that role? Does that make sense?
Hiring manager, or I'm the person hiring for the position, I'm the interviewer, and I have someone who comes in and they're wildly overqualified. They've been doing this for 100 years, and they've got 16 degrees. That may be great, but if I am also interviewing someone who's coming in with a fresh perspective and a new approach and maybe doesn't have all those qualifications, I would not say that that person can't compete with the older overqualified person. They are bringing different things. They're bringing different things to the table. You just have to find the thing that you're bringing to the table. No, I don't think so. I think to Mike's point, you may appear overqualified if you throw all your skills on the plate. But if you take that job and what that job wants you to do and you find just those skills, then you're not overqualified, you're perfectly qualified. And it's partly a matter of framing what you're bringing to the table so that people understand that you're not just someone who's just been here for 100 years. You have specific things that they need and you can bring them to the table.
Yeah, I would add to that, like Mike suggested, tailor your resume to the job position, keep it concise, so that, because that's all we look at. Okay, how the storytelling aspect comes into that too. A cover letter, thank you note still are valid, because you cannot tell a person just looking at a 1-page or 2-page resume. It doesn't tell. It's a very single dimension there. But if you add other stuff to it, that shows you're truly interested, you're passionate, you're good at listening, because that's what you do after when you send a thank you note, that you did hear what the business problems are, challenges, and then you were able to provide with it doesn't have to be another page of thank you note, very simple. So those all do add up, and that kind of takes away that overqualification, underqualification, and puts a lot of emphasis on the attitude, and I can bring this person into my organization and they can get things done.
Just as a question, how long are your resumes? Mine's 1 page.
May I add something? I just looking how you ask question, and I'm sorry, I tried not to be personal, but since you asked this question, you know what? When you ask question, you already show that you don't believe in yourself. You didn't sound like that. Didn't sound like that. You just said, I'm not overqualified. I'm super qualified. You know, I'm not, how you said, aged? How you said, what word you said, mature? Something like, you know, I'm stable. I'm come here and bring my experience. I'm knowledge. I just need, I'm sorry, I think you need to change how you're asking question and how you see yourself, because how you ask question, it send me message. At least I saw it differently. Maybe you not, but I saw you that you already kind of give up. I'm not qualified and I'm mature. How you guys taking me? No, you're the present, and everybody will be happy to hire you if you have knowledge, interested to work.
What's the call? All right. I think there was a woman back here in the pink. Yeah, thank you.
Is it on?
Yes.
Okay. Hello. I'm a marketing major, so I just have a question for Mike. How do you feel the IT world and the market are growing like together? And like, how do they build together? And like, how do you as an IT like person use the market to, again, like sell to the customer?
So I'm trying to think of a,
Like, I guess, how are they all connected?
but that's
How-
kind of where I'm
yeah.
going to go. I'm just trying to think of how to, and this is where we talked about earlier with data and bringing everything together. When you're talking about marketing, in traditional sense of what we're talking about is technology, ERP, those are systems that run the company, and those are facts that you have internal. There's also external data that you have that you bring into the fold that helps make the decision-making process different and brings a different view to it and allows you to slice it differently. And then you have the aspects of the consumers that you have, and you pay for marketing research, and you have to find ways to pump that information together, make it relevant to the rest of the facts you have internally. Because a lot of times people get lost in, these are the facts that we have as an organization. When you talk about the clogs that we have, we have assumed for years that what was making this successful was the innovation we're putting out there, and a couple other factors related to the holes and whatnot. They were completely wrong. And as we started to take that data about a year ago, and then start to plug in the sentiment that we're getting on social media and tying that to the sales revenue and whatnot, it changes the conversation. And then you learn more about your consumer. And that's why I said earlier, understanding who the consumer is and understanding that you're there to sell product, and the way that you sell product is in IT, using technology to help facilitate making decisions. That's what it's all about. And that's where talking about things for marketing, like being engaged from a workflow perspective. And if we're signing Luke Combs, you have the interview process, the legal agreements, the assets to have to go through, then the imagery that goes behind the shoe that you take, and then when it goes into production, when it comes out, and tying that all end to end is critically important, certainly on the collaboration front, bringing product to market. So there's aspects of technology in every portion of the business. And that's why saying tech and just relegating yourself to technology being something as an ERP space, or even from a cybersecurity space, I mean, incredibly important. When you're talking about marketing, you have the IP, you have data that's all behind it. You have the privacy between the agreements before it's made public, and so there's a lot of information and communications that are happening there, and that's all part of that technology realm. So being engaged and being involved in every space is part of the fun of being in technology.
So I think that that's a good wrap up, because we are, sorry, we're out of time. I'm bowing to the timekeeper here, but I want to give just a really quick overview of what you heard tonight, so you have some takeaways. Starting a little bit kind of in the middle about what if I don't feel qualified. I think maybe you heard from several of the panelists Nobody loves every job every day or feels qualified for everything the day they walk into it. Say yes. Walk in there, learn that stuff, present yourself in your best way. We think about IT as being very techy, but we heard that storytelling is a key aspect. Storytelling about yourself, storytelling about the business, storytelling about the sector and what you could do for it and how things could be different and better is important. Talking with that business mindset. Tell the story in their language, not necessarily yours, in the language of their product, their service, their sector, right? And when you're presenting yourself, tailor your experience to be what the job needs, not just everything you're bringing, because you have something for that job or you wouldn't be applying for it. Remember the social skills, collaboration, being a team player, not just, not just hanging out on your own. And yet there's still a place for introverts who want to do their thing and, be meticulous and work through it kind of on their own. IT is an incredibly broad space. I think all of us, you've heard so many different experiences today. Tonight, we've heard from people who have experienced programming, military, bank teller, an econ major, consulting, aerospace, retail, manufacturing, policy, law. Every one of those things came up sometime tonight and have some kind of relevance to IT. So whether you're an IT or tech kind of person looking at how to apply that to the world, or you're a business person with kind of a, hey, I think this IT thing is kind of cool, there is a place for you out there. There are a million paths. The one you start on is not gonna be the one you finish on. I don't think any of us are on the path we started on, maybe not even in the major we started on, but it's an incredibly rich place. And you guys are gonna have awesome successes, and I think we wish you well. So thanks to the panelists for all their insights tonight. I really appreciate it. John, did you want to wrap things up?
Just want to thank our esteemed panel and moderator for a really awesome discussion around IT and the job opportunities that you all can have. And I think this is one of the most engaging discussions we've had in this event in a long time. And not that the other ones were bad, but this was just really, really great. And I want everybody to give the panel a round of applause. And we have some thank you gifts for our panelists. So bring them forward. Yes. And at the end of the event, those of you that are volunteers, we want to get and officers in the ISA, we want to get a picture, and faculty pictures with the group and the panel. So don't run away at the very end. And if you guys did not get to ask your question, if you have a question, you can, if the panelists will indulge you, you can walk up after the event and ask the question to them personally. It's a great way to build your network. So thank you, everybody. And thank you for those of you that stayed the whole time. Thank you for staying and have a great day.